Now we all know the reason for the success of East Brunswick's Golden Bears. Next item on the agenda is what you're all here for, no doubt, a discussion about the Turnpike expansion project. I will simply introduce two people that are a part of this project, obviously. Certainly one man is. Chairman Sullivan, Joseph Sullivan from the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, and perhaps Chairman Sullivan, not everybody knows you, I don't know. I'll also introduce Mr. Ed Cohen. Mr. Ed Cohen, who is a member and chairman of the ad hoc committee for the project that is not supporting, obviously, the Turnpike expansion. Now, the way this is going to work this evening, so that we have some order to it, there'll be some opening remarks by Chairman Sullivan, I suppose 5 or 6 minutes or so. Then there'll be some questions from the council to Commissioner Chairman Sullivan. And then Mrs. Kiss is going to read the questions that you've all selected to be read this evening. I think there's going to be some selection on the questions, so that there's no duplication. So we'll get on, and then there'll be some final comments by Commissioner Sullivan, and some comments again by the mayor and the council to wrap it up. So I suppose we can get along with the business of the evening and ask Mr. Sullivan if the... No, I think we'll start off with you, Chairman Sullivan. Unless you wanted to... no. Okay, Ed, you want to lead it off? Go ahead.
Yeah. I'd like to give the public a brief history. We've been in business for 2 weeks, and before I do that, I'd like to thank...
Okay.
Put it on your shoulder.
Here. Ed.
Okay, good.
Can you hear me now? I guess so. I'd like to publicly thank the council and the mayor for appointing me to this commission and the dubious honor of being the chairman. And I'd like to give the public a brief outline of our program goals and objectives and what we expect to accomplish and how we expect to accomplish it. We are out to review the data of the Turnpike and the traffic information and justify to ourselves that an expansion between 9 and 8A is needed. And we're going to do that with the help of a traffic consultant. If an expansion is needed, if any expansion is needed, we would like, and really would like to put this as one of our mandatory demands, the position, we'd like to take the position of having the Turnpike present to us various rights of way in their expansion plans. And what do I mean by this? Let's assume that the Turnpike does justify the 12 lanes, expanding 6 lanes to 12. We could put 6 lanes on the west side of the Turnpike, 6 lanes could be put on the east side of the Turnpike, 3 on each side. We think that this township should have input, and the citizens of this township should have input on where this right-of-way is going to go and how it will affect the citizens. Up to this date, for the 25 years that we've been involved with the Turnpike, we have not had any input at all, nor has anybody even listened to us. That's why today is a very historic moment when we see Commissioner Sullivan, who's the chairman of the Turnpike Authority, here to address us. As a last goal and objective, and most important, no matter what is done in this particular township, we will insist on environmental protection. There is no reason in the world why this Turnpike, with $2 billion worth of funds, cannot spend some money to protect the citizens and their neighbors, and especially this township. This township is the Turnpike's home. The Turnpike lives in this township. The administration building, in case anybody doesn't know it, is in our land. Of course, we don't pay taxes in this land, and to our township on this land, but they are here, and they are our neighbors, and I thought it would be well that, as a neighbor, I extended an invitation on the mayor's behalf and the council's behalf for Mr. Sullivan to come and visit us. And of course, there were several bets that Mr. Sullivan wouldn't even see me, which he did very graciously and accepted our invitation to come. So, Mr. Sullivan is here now, and we hope that the questions that you will give him will be generalized questions, because he will not discuss whose home will be done something to, or where the rights-of-way will be, but he will discuss the generalities of this, and then will tell us what he will do next. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Joseph Bo Sullivan, who's chairman of the New Jersey Turnpike Authority.
Thank you very much, Ed, and thank you all for having me here tonight as your guest. I'm just going to, if I can, or if I may, take about 5 minutes of your time and give you a little brief history as to what is behind this very large project, not only here between interchanges 9 and 8A, but also in the north, where the project is even much larger. And then perfectly willing and happy to take all your questions, and also let you know right now, as I've explained privately to Mr. Cohen and to the mayor, that we're here really to help and to cooperate, not really to try and impose our so-called governmental will on people, because basically that's what we all are. We are people, we are citizens of New Jersey and America, and I think it's appropriate that we treat each other as such. One thing I can say, and I haven't, I'll touch on the plans and the rights-of-way a little bit later. I have not yet received the specific drawings and the alternative plans which will affect this area. So I really can't say with any great degree of definitiveness exactly what is going to happen here. But I can say this, I think, safely, that the number of homes that will be impacted by this widening will be absolutely no more than a mere handful. And we will work in every way possible not to inconvenience or upset anybody. That's a big promise, it's a big job, and I know there's going to be problems with construction because I've got the same thing around my house. And that in itself can be a pain, but that is my pledge, and our first indications are that a very, very few homes will be affected by this widening. Let me say this, how we decide and why we decide to widen. There are historic criteria that have been developed over the years by the New Jersey Turnpike Authority as to why you should widen. They are called widening criteria. For example, in this area between interchange 9 and 8A, the widening criteria plugs in when you have a situation where in excess of, for 45 days or more, you have more than a certain number of thousand vehicles per day using the road. Or on weekends, it's slightly different. Naturally, the criteria are different in the north, where we're 12 lanes. As soon as we get to those numbers, those traffic counts, we have to start looking at what is our problem on the road, because our responsibility is to provide a safe through transportation traffic system. We owe it to the toll payers that they can drive without being stopped by excess traffic, and we owe it to the toll payers also to provide a safe roadway. So those are our main objectives with the Turnpike, and we operate with those widening criteria. In addition to those widening criteria, they relate to what we call volume capacity ratios. For example, if we have a volume capacity ratio of 1.0, that means that the road is carrying just enough traffic to fill it up at capacity. If we're below 1.0, for example, 0.75, we're carrying 75% of capacity. At 1.2, we're at 20% over capacity, and at 1.2, incidentally, we are at a stop-and-go traffic configuration, the likes of which you may see out here, for example, on the day before Thanksgiving, when it gets very congested, especially southbound. All those statistics are very fine and very fancy, but they are what dictate to us and to our obligation to the state under our statutes and our obligations to our bondholders that we have to start thinking about taking some action. We monitor those reports ourselves in our administration building with our computers, but before we can do anything, we have to bring in independent traffic consultants that, although we pay them, they don't report to us. They report to the bondholders, the trustees, and in the case of a new bond issue, the rating agencies that are overseeing our bond issue. Also, you know, when you talk just about traffic, it's rather, I think, a dry subject, just in pure numbers. But I would like to give you just some idea, and I think you all know what's happening in this great county of Middlesex. A couple of weeks ago, the Middlesex Somerset Mercer Regional Study Council came out with a report that focused on 7 key core towns in the Route 1 corridor, and although East Brunswick was not included in the study, Lawrence, 2 Princetons, West Windsor, Plainsboro, and North and South Brunswick were. It still gives, I think, a very good idea as to what is happening here, especially towards the south of Mercer County. Their study indicates that non-residential development, which is primarily, I think, going to be office, between 1980 and the year 2005, and my kids say to me, 2005, that's so far in the future. Well, the year 2000 is only 14 years ahead, and I know as a grandfather, 14 years ago went awful fast, so I'm afraid the next 14 is going to go even faster. But in non-residential development, primarily office, they expect a 214% growth, going from 20 million square feet up to 62.8 million square feet. Jobs, an increase is estimated at 240% from 56,000 up to 192,000. Housing units up 165%, 30,000 to 80,000 housing units. Traffic, which they define as trip ends, where your trip ends, whether you be going to work or going home, they expect an increase of 135% from 378,000 trips to 889,000 trips. They are concerned, this independent study group, that regional levels of mobility will decline sharply without significant highway improvements. That's the kind of subjective information that we also have to plug into our thinking along with the raw statistics. One area which has, I think, created some confusion is the fact that this proposed widening really is being done somewhat in reverse of what would be normal. Normally what we would be doing would be going out, doing the engineering studies, doing the environmental studies, putting together a plan, and then doing the financing. And traditionally the financing is done, as you know, I think, on a tax-exempt bond basis. And traditionally, over a 5-year period, you would do probably 5 individual yearly bond issues which would pay for each year's construction as you go along. That would have been our plan. However, in June, there was introduced in Congress a tax reform measure. The tax reform measure that was introduced would have severely restricted the Turnpike's ability to fund its project, to earn reinvestment proceeds on the bond funds, and would have even called into question the tax exemption of the entire deal. That bill, as you all know, I think passed the House just before the congressional Christmas recess, and still bears an effective date of January 1st, 1986. And I'm told by those who are supposedly in the know in Washington that that bill will probably have an effective date of January 1st, 86, even though it may not be passed by the Senate until later on this spring. With those types of potential fiscal restraints being placed on us, we felt that the prudent business practice would be to try to fund the project in advance before this tax bill, which would have cost us probably 10 or 15% of the total. That is why we had to rush to market to get that bond issue out. And if, for those of you that follow the bond market, the week following our issue, interest rates rose very high because we aren't the smartest people in the world. Every independent authority from Maine to Alaska to Florida and Texas had the same idea we did, and the tax-exempt municipal bond market was flooded with issues driving interest rates up. We feel that the way we did it, our special, unique type of bonding, the way we can earn reinvestment proceeds pending construction, saved us $450 million over the life of the issue, a savings which we feel is worthwhile to the Turnpike, to the state, and to the toll payer. And I might add, too, that if any portion of the widening plan doesn't go through, if we don't use the money, we can defease the bonds and pay back those people who loan us the money. And I should add, too, that the Turnpike never, ever has, nor can we ever in the future, ever get a cent of tax money. We don't get a cent from the state. In fact, we give the state $12 million a year for the Transportation Trust Fund, and we don't get a cent from the federal government, even though for much of our length, we are designated as Interstate 95. So that the money we have is either earned from tolls or is borrowed from the public and from institutions. And that's why our tolls relate to paying off our debt. So that confusion, really, I think we hit the papers with the financing, and $2 billion is a lot of money. They tell me that talking in billions is good training for going to Washington, because down there they say, you know, $1 billion here, $1 billion there, we'll run into money in a while. But I must assure you all that we anticipate to have plenty of hearings, plenty of input from citizens and from experts over the course of this widening program. I should add too that because of the time constraints placed on us, rather than hiring one engineering firm to do the engineering, we have hired 17 separate section engineers, each one of which has been assigned a section. And that's why we've been a little bit slow in getting all the reports and drawings in, because there's no one place we can point the finger. This information is coming through. I must say also that as the information comes through, it's going to be certainly reviewed by Mr. Cohen and his committee, who are always welcome at the Turnpike, and by the mayor and by anyone else really who is interested. As a matter of fact, I would like to announce we are going to have a series of information meetings here in East Brunswick at the library, and I understand we've reserved this time already, on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, February 24th, 25th, and 26th. On the 24th and 25th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., and on the 26th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. This is an informal information meeting. There'll be drawings up for you to look at, and there'll be close, tight scale drawings, so you can really see what's going on. We will have in attendance at these meetings representatives of our consulting engineers, our environmental engineers, our real estate consultants. I hope myself to be able to get there from time to time. And this is informal. You're please welcome and encouraged to just drop in, look at the plans, ask all the questions you want. It's your way to have some input and to get your questions answered. In addition to that, for East Brunswick, I might add too, in case you can't make those dates, we will be having similar meetings in South Brunswick on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 27th, 28th, and March 1st. So if for some reason you're away while the hearings are being held here at the library, you can run down to the South Brunswick Municipal Building for the same information. There will be a formal public hearing held at the Vocational Tech High School here. That will be on Tuesday, March 18th, and will be from at 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. at night. So, you know, we do fully anticipate public involvement, and we welcome it, because as I said before, we consider ourselves a neighbor. We hope to be a good neighbor. The only way we can be is if we have your input. I might also add, in response to Mr. Cohen's earlier remarks, as I get into the office, the drawings for the widening that affects this municipality, I've invited Mr. Cohen and his group to come in and review those. And I can tell you this, although I haven't seen them, we have asked the engineers to do more than just one scenario. As Ed pointed out, I mean, you can if you put 6 lanes on one side, you can get a different result than if you put all 6 lanes on the other, or if you split them in any other configuration. I will guarantee you that no contracts will be let until Mr. Cohen and his group have consulted with us, and we've had a free and complete interchange, and hopefully we'll be able all to agree on what is best for the township and citizens of East Brunswick. We have hired environmental people who are in the field, doing the environmental testing. And I'd like to just point out one thing. Years ago, when the last Turnpike widening of a major sort took place in the late 60s and early 70s, the citizens of this country and this state didn't have the protections that they have today with the environmental laws and permitting and requirements. There's a different set of rules. We expect not only to comply with the letter of those rules and regulations, but also with the spirit. And I'm here to tell you that it's our intention to be a good neighbor. We cannot, by our own statutes and our own bonding, go too far beyond what is required of us. But everything that's required, and in some cases there will be areas where federal statutes don't even apply. Noise, for example. Doesn't matter. We're going to comply with those federal regulations. We're going to be in the field working all the time. We welcome really the studies that Mr. Cohen's group is going to conduct. As I said before, we keep our own traffic numbers. We hire consulting traffic engineers. We welcome a third expert and their opinion and their advice. All it does, in my opinion, is helps reinforce a decision, or may even cause us to take another look at something. We think it's a good idea. I agree also with the idea of hiring an outside party with respect to environment. Sure, we have to contend with Army Corps when we get into streams and wetlands, and we have to always comply with the State Department of Environmental Protection rules and regulations. We have our own environmental people. We have outside consultants. Someone else coming in, helping us, we welcome it, Ed, and we're happy to work with you. There will be, and I'd be lying if I said otherwise, there will be inconvenience. There will be some disruption, and for that, I must say I apologize, but it's not intentional. We're here to help as much as possible, and I pledge to you the cooperation not only of me, but the entire Turnpike Commission and all the staff. And I thank you all very much for your hospitality and having me here tonight.
Chairman Sullivan, thank you very much. And at this point, as you know from the agenda, you may have been briefed. There are some questions from the council. We can direct them to you. Then we would move on to the questions I alluded to before, those questions that were written down on cards that Mrs. Kiss will read for us.
With your permission, I'll remain standing so everybody can see.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mike.
I'll stand also, Commissioner. As Ed mentioned, we're your host community here, and I think we're a reasonable community, and the people out here are reasonable people. And I think that the demands and the concerns that we have are reasonable. I'm sure that we'd like nothing better than to sit down with the authority and work out the differences between the residents in town and the authority. And I'm appreciating your outgoing effort of coming here tonight. But it's a little difficult to be reasonable or to tell people, let's be reasonable and calm when Turnpike engineers go on folks' properties without permission, which is trespassing, or when the council is told by some of your staff one story and residents will call up and speak to a lower level staff person and get a different story. And most importantly, it's hard to be calm and relaxed, and I hear the assurances you're making, and I appreciate them, but it's hard given the past track record of the Turnpike. I grew up in one of the neighborhoods over in Pine Ridge that was affected by the last expansion, and I know what folks went through in that neighborhood. So I've got some questions or issues I would like you to address. The first is, can we get a commitment from you to designate a single staff member as a liaison between the township and the committee and the Turnpike Authority, also someone who would be designated to take residents' calls?
Yes, that's in the works, being planned, not only for East Brunswick, but for every municipality that will be impacted by the widening. Each municipality will have a staff person assigned to it as a focus point for residents' questions and questions by proper municipal authorities.
The other concern, and it's one that was expressed to us by residents over the past few weeks at council meetings, is that your staff or your consultants have gone onto people's property without requesting permission. Is it possible to get a commitment from you that they won't trespass without permission?
Well, I can tell you this, they're not supposed to, and if we have any instances of it, I hope you will report that. Call the chairman's office or the executive director's office and let us know. It's like raising kids. You know, you can't always control what they're doing. And I would venture to say, too, that probably there may be some mistakes and they might not know exactly where the property lines are. They should know. If that's occurred, I apologize for it. And if you'll bring it to my attention, we'll do our very best so it'll never happen again.
And the last one is really a request of you. Your attitude is appreciated. Sometimes in a large bureaucracy, it doesn't filter down to the folks that we have to deal with on a daily level. And you're the boss, and we'd appreciate if you would put the word out to tell folks to be cooperative. We're not a bunch of crazies. We have real concerns that should be given real consideration, not just lip service.
The word is out and it gets reinforced every week when I'm there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the questions.
Mr. Runyon.
Commissioner, last time the Turnpike widened,
We were boys.
the Turnpike said that they absolutely refused to have anything to do with any noise amelioration, noise barriers, or any kind of protection in that regard. As a matter of fact, the Concerned Citizens, which was a non-governmental group of citizens, sued the New Jersey Turnpike Authority. Some money was received for the construction of noise barriers as a result of the litigation, but they had to be placed in ways that were really not most effective because the Turnpike Authority simply absolutely refused to have those barriers on the Turnpike property. You had mentioned that you were on environmental protections, that you were going to do everything possible. From my perspective, regardless of how you widen, I'm going to be looking, hopefully, for some noise protection for the folks who live in the Turnpike corridor. Has the Turnpike's policy, which at one time was absolutely no, we will have nothing to do with any noise protection, changed? And if so, to what degree?
Well, the policy changed because the statutes changed. As I alluded earlier, the last time that the Turnpike was widened, we did not have the state and federal protection of the citizens that we have now. I think those environmental laws are good, and we intend, as I said before, to comply not only with the letter of those laws, but also with the spirit. We're looking at, as you probably know, there's wide disagreement among the experts in the field about the effectiveness of a variety of type of noise barriers, whether it be plantings or dirt berms or walls. And I'm not an expert in that field and really can't make a judgment as to what's the most effective noise barrier. I know that the Department of Transportation right now is experimenting on Route 287 up in Morristown with some noise barriers. We're waiting for DOT to give us some statistical information as to how successful they are. And again, all this information will be shared with Ed Cohen and his group, and hopefully we'll have a reasonable meeting of the minds on it. But we are extremely sensitive to any type of inconvenience to anyone, and the real answer is, yeah, the policy's changed quite a bit.
Thank you. The other thing is that you've indicated tonight that no specific plans are available. I have a very close friend who I have no reason to disbelieve, who happened to be out on some farmland he owns along the Turnpike, and on his land he met an archaeologist or consultant on the environmental impact, who was an archaeologist, and this gentleman laid out some plans on his vehicle and represented that they had something to do with the widening, and this gentleman told me in specific detail some things that were going to occur with regard to the widening. Now, I don't know what the archaeologist had, but he was out, I guess, as a part of the environmental impact statement, doing something in the field. While it's very important to us to have any detailed proposals as soon as they are available. The Turnpike Authority, I know, had plans for widening through the rest of East Brunswick 15 years ago, to some degree. But because they were working on it or thinking about it, at least at that time. I certainly hope that we will get, the detailed plans as soon as something is available, because many people believe that, quite honestly, that they in fact already exist.
No, well, let me tell you about the plans. What does exist are aerial photos. Now, aerial photos are fine, and the state of the art is really improved from the old bombing World War II pictures. But what that does is give you a rough delineation. The environmental consultants are given a rough, probably a 200 or 500 scale plan, which doesn't really tell you much, but it gives the environmental consultant the parameters within which he should be looking for such. If it's an archaeologist, he's probably looking for Indian artifacts or something. Talk about the environment. Can I just digress a second? When we built Interchange 13A up at Newark Airport a number of years ago, and they started the excavation, they found holes in the ground. Like you dig a trench, you see holes in it, and it was decided that muskrats lived there. Well, that was fine, except that we had to shell out about $1 million to improve wetlands up near the Vince Lombardi Service Center, planting, this is a new word I learned, I'll share it with you, phragmites. Phragmites are those reeds, punks we used to call them, things you dry out and burn in late August to keep the mosquitoes away, and so that we could provide a habitat for muskrats. I'm glad to know that they're now looking out for Indian artifacts. But I'm sure that they are looking at a broader parameter than we have. We will work, the engineers will work from 30 scale plans. They are coming in, as I told Ed, I haven't even seen 100 scales yet. I think they came in around the first week of January. But just as soon as we get that, which is a definitive plan from which we can tell whether a house or a street or a lot is affected, because you can't tell from those broad plans. They're going to be shared with you.
Okay, one more brief comment, then I'll pass it on to other council members who might have questions. I want to indicate to you how much I appreciate your attitude. And hopefully your attitude will translate as time goes along into meaningful dialogue, because it will be a first for East Brunswick to approach these things in a really positive way, and I hope that will occur. This isn't a question, but a comment, and also I hope someday that the Turnpike Authority will start to use its East Brunswick address rather than New Brunswick, since you are a resident of East Brunswick. Thank you.
Commissioner Sullivan, I have no questions, but I do have some remarks. First of all, in regard to your use of 17 engineering firms, I might suggest that one might be more appropriate and start them way up north. Take your time. Take a very long time. I don't know if you understand the impact that occurred in this town when the information all of a sudden hit us. All of us had calls from hysterical women saying that they knew exactly what date their house was going to be destroyed. It's the truth. In addition to which, all of us received copies of letters and letters that township residents sent to the Turnpike and replies, and many of them really were misleading. Some of them stated that there was no intention of widening. We all have copies of these letters, and that's really what caused or started this tremendous hysteria. But what I'd like you to really understand is that Ed Cohn and his group absolutely have all our support, and that it's not merely a lip service that we're giving them, because we really are committed. And I hope that the Turnpike understands the caliber of the people that are on the committee, because I attended the Thursday night's meeting, and I was very surprised at what they had accomplished in 2 weeks. I called Ed Cohn General Cohn. He's got subcommittees all over the place. He's got technicians. He's got PhDs. And really, I personally will support him to the utmost. I'm sure all of us will. And if we feel that we're being horsed around, we really will spend the money. And this is what all these people here expect us to do. And we absolutely will do it. So I'd like you to at least leave with that impression that this is not idle talk.
Thank you, Councilman Becker. Let me add, if there's anyone with correspondence that's misleading or in any way not properly informative, and with your permission, I'd ask you to submit it to Mr. Collins' committee and bring it over to the Pike someday, and we'll, oh Lord, oh Lord. And I will do my best to straighten it out and write to everybody.
Just for the public's information, we have a letter from the Turnpike attorney who states, we have a letter from the Turnpike attorney who states that
We have a letter from the Turnpike attorney who states in August that there is no expansion contemplated at this time.
In this area.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah.
That was true. What happened was, based upon our own statistics, the expansion that was contemplated was going to be totally from Interchange 9 North. When our independent traffic consultants got out into the field and did the statistics which I referred to before as the comparison of the numbers on widening criteria and volume capacity ratios, it was then, and not until then, I'm going to say late October, that the indication came through that we should leave the area between Interchange 9 and Interchange 11 alone and widen from Interchange 9 south to 8A. And I was as surprised as anybody when those numbers came in, and we announced that shortly thereafter publicly. But that, if it was dated August, he was telling the truth as he knew it at the time.
One quick additional comment, and I'll waive my comments later at the end. I want to reiterate what Mr. Becker said. The council does very much support this committee, which is really representing our entire community. The impact of a widening is on our entire community, not just those who live along the Turnpike. In that recognition, I believe at least a majority of the council has said that they're willing to spend at this time at least up to $100,000 in support of consultants for the widening. It's my hope we won't have to spend very much of that money. It's my hope that through negotiations and discussions with you and your representatives, we can reach agreement on lots of things and not have to spend a lot of money on consultants going back and forth. But we will do what is necessary, as Mr. Becker said, to assure the protection of not only the residents who live in the Turnpike corridor, but all the residents of the community who are impacted in many different ways by the presence of the Turnpike here. And we're very serious about that, as Mr. Becker said. And I'll pass on now. Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan, I want to, I just have one question I'd like to ask. Is the proposed widening also include the upgrading, widening, enlarging exit number 9?
Interchange 9
Interchange 9.
is going to be improved, made larger, more probably in response to the Tower Center development than to our particular widening. But that's a whole other discussion when you get to Tower Center. But it is anticipated that we are going to enlarge Interchange 9 and also, as quickly as possible, enlarge the ramp leading from Interchange 9 to Route 18 westbound.
Would that include widening the bridge that goes over the exit? You know how the two-lane highway, two-lane road over the
Narracon Bridge Bridge?
That's right.
We're going to have to lengthen Narracon Bridge. That I can say unequivocally because it's an arch bridge, and at the current time we have one lane and a shoulder, which is standard Turnpike configuration. We're planning to go to 2 lanes and a shoulder. That means the bridge has to get longer. What we do with the width, I don't know, to tell you the truth, because I don't know what the Tower Center people and the Department of Transportation are going to do with respect to a whole series of ramps. I can't make the decision until I know what's going to happen there. But once we get enough information that we can work on it, we'll be happy to work with you.
Oh, that's the only question I have. Thank you.
Chairman Sullivan, I simply have one question regarding your comment that you learned as of October, perhaps, that there was going to be an expansion of the Turnpike between 8A and 9, as opposed to from 9 north. I just simply like to comment as a commuter that has traveled and is still traveling to and from New York City every day during the peak morning hours and peak evening hours for 17 years. That my impression, my distinct impression is that, let's assume that I'm traveling home from New York City in the evening hours, I find that the Turnpike is terribly congested between exit 16 and exit 11. But once I move past 11 on the way south toward 9, it frees up considerably. Considerably. By the same token, the same thing would be true in the morning. From exit 9 through exit 11, there isn't a heck of a lot of traffic on that, but once you reach 11, certainly 13 and 15, which is horrendous. My own feeling is that perhaps you can take back to your engineers to take a very good, close look at some of the work that I think, as a one commuter, perhaps I'm sure there's a lot of commuters out here that may feel the same way, that travel the road the same kinds of distances that I travel. Have them look at it. I think that money would be well spent in widening and improving the conditions north of exit 11.
Well, part of our widening plan is to do just exactly that. From 11 up to Newark Airport, we're going to add an additional lane in each direction. When we get up to where an awful lot of the traffic that you hit is because it can't free up and get further north. Do you go through the Lincoln Tunnel or the Holland Tunnel?
Lincoln.
Lincoln. And a lot of the traffic that you hit over on the easterly extension is because they can't get north on the westerly. The westerly extension, which runs through the Meadowlands up by the sports complex, is going to go from 6 lanes to 12 lanes. And an entire new interchange 16W is planned to be built in conjunction with a tie-in with a DOT project to extend Route 17 south through the Meadows, tying in with Route 280 somewhere around our interchange 15W. So we're very well aware of that. Yeah, I might add, for your interest, the funny types of problems you get, we've been working very closely with Port Authority to try and provide express bus lanes and stuff like that and different routes to speed them up. We're now working with New York Transit. Someone at New York Transit figured out that people from Staten Island can get to work in Midtown Manhattan faster if they bring the New York Transit buses across the bridges and up the Turnpike. So we must be doing something right, because I guess New York wants to come over and borrow our facility. But thank you for your comments.
Thank you. At this point, Chairman Sullivan will have Mrs. Kiss read questions from the audience, and if you would, to answer or
Be
comment.
delighted.
Ready? If you want to say.
Okay. First question. If no preliminary engineering reports were done by November 5th, 1985, then how can bonds be sold at $2 million?
$2 billion.
$2 billion.
Hard to get used to it. The preliminary engineering plans, as I indicated earlier, are the type of 500 scale plans, which doesn't look like too much more than a magic marker line drawn down the road. The consulting engineers, who incidentally don't work for the Turnpike, they're hired by us, estimate, and at best it's an estimate, as to how much that's going to cost to do and approximately the number of lane miles. They do work all over the world, and they can do fairly sophisticated estimates as to what the project will cost. And I might add that the project cost for the widening, including everything in the north and the new interchange, is estimated in 1985 dollars at $1.3 billion. The other stuff is for safer barriers, interchange improvements, interchange 7, for example, in Bordentown, and other work, plus some built-in inflation factors, some capitalized interest, and a reserve fund.
Thank you. From November 1983 through 1984, the engineering was being completed by the consultants and section engineers. Why was East Brunswick not consulted at that time?
I think the dates are a little cockeyed.
Says November 1983 through 1984.
I think it might have been 84 and 85. At any rate, what threw our timetable off with respect to notification of the public and, for that matter, the governing body, as I mentioned before, was the fact that we had to rush to market with a very sophisticated bond issue to try to save on the finance, fiscal side, the type of money which we did. Had we had our druthers, they wouldn't have introduced a tax bill, although I'd like to have a tax cut too. In the absence of that tax bill, we would just now be coming forward with these public meetings, and no one would have even heard about it beforehand, and we would start from scratch with the public meetings, and that's what's got us a little bit reversed, in that we did the financing first.
This question refers to Plate 7, headed New Jersey Turnpike Volume Capacity Ratio between interchanges, which was included in the modification changes of November 7, 1985. This chart indicates that in the year 2004, or 18 years from now, only 64% of the proposed 12 lanes between interchanges 8A and 9 will be utilized. How then, given these figures, can the Turnpike Authority justify a widening of this magnitude?
That's a very good question. The projections used on Plate 7 are basically historic, or developed from historic numbers which indicate an approximate 3.5% annual growth. Our growth for the last 4 years has run somewhere between 7 and 8%. The historic growth figures are somewhat, and to a large extent, depressed because of the oil shortage, the oil crisis, the gasoline shortages and crises which we faced years ago, and also because of the then predominance of fuel inefficient vehicles. So if you take those most current conservative estimates, we will in fact be at a 54% capacity. But as I said before, at 75% capacity, you're starting to really use up the capacity. And if you get to 1.0, you're at full capacity. We don't feel that's safe. The other thing with respect to safety, the additional lanes in this area will enable us to dualize the highway, keep the trucks away from the passenger cars. I think, as you all know, we had a very, very tragic and serious fatality just about a week ago. That fatality would not have occurred had that been a separated roadway. That was a terrible thing, and it's the type of thing that keeps you awake at night.
When will the plan be finalized and made public? Specifically, when will the affected property owners be notified?
I hope to meet either later this week or first part of next week with Mr. Cohen with respect to the various alternative plans that will be coming in. And as soon as we do that, obviously the information becomes public.
Does the Turnpike feel obligated to compensate homeowners for devaluating their property, those bordering the Turnpike and coming closer?
Yes, we do, and there's also very strict statutes that govern us with respect to impairment of value and relocation and things like that. And as I said before, we hopefully will try to become good neighbors.
This question is very similar. Will those homeowners whose homes are not taken but will lose property value due to the new lanes be compensated?
I believe so. I'm not sure of that, but I believe so.
Was a study done by the New Jersey Turnpike on exactly how many cars pass through exit 9, and if so, may we see it?
Yeah, not only a study, we know every day and every hour how many cars are coming in and going out through every interchange, up and down the entire roadway. At the monthly meetings, they give me statistics that it's the world's greatest cure for insomnia. You take that book to bed and try to read all those numbers, you go right to sleep. And anyone who wants that type of information, please contact me either directly or through Mr. Cohen. We'd be glad to provide it.
How will you determine what price we will receive for our homes if they are to be condemned by the Turnpike Authority?
There is a statute which relates to the taking of property, and appraisals are done, independent appraisals are done, and for fair market values are determined. The money is then deposited. Sometimes there's a dispute, sometimes there isn't, but we have to follow the Office of Community Services in Trenton and their statutes.
Are there any plans to eliminate or move the service area on the northbound side of the Turnpike in East Brunswick?
Not that I know of.
How much notice will be given to those people affected by condemnation?
Again, there are statutory rules, but I think when we come out with these 30-scale plans, which Ed and I will be reviewing in the very near future, I think that those maps will be tight enough so we can make some pretty good estimates.
Will the proposed widening be 3 northbound, 3 southbound, or 6 southbound lanes?
The widening will be 3 northbound, 3 southbound, which will give us a total configuration of 6 north and 6 south.
What is the closest the turnpike is permitted to come near a house?
The roadway itself, I think we're required to have something like a 50-foot right-of-way to property line. I don't know what the property lines are. Now, in other words, I don't know how close you're allowed to build your house to the property line in the municipality.
Are you allowed to put a roadway over top of the gas pipeline?
The Intercontinental gas line up in the Bayway?
I believe so.
Yeah, we have a roadway over it now, and we get numerous requests around the state for what are called utility easements for local gas companies and water companies and electric companies to run their lines underneath the pike. So we are allowed to do it. I hope they don't shut down the Intercontinental gas line while we're doing it, because my house is heated with gas.
Will sound barriers be constructed in populated areas?
Where needed, yeah.
Will the Turnpike Authority allow township participation now before the spending of monies on preliminary engineering drawings of a routing the Turnpike Authority already knows and prefers?
Well,
I didn't understand. Could you read that again?
Will the Turnpike Authority allow township participation now before the spending of monies on preliminary engineering drawings of a routing the Turnpike Authority already knows and prefers?
well, let me answer the question in 2 parts. We've already spent money on preliminary engineering plans. We're not going to let any construction contracts where people start tearing up dirt, lawns, houses, etc., until we have had full input and consultation with Mr. Cohen and his committee. We don't really have, at least I don't, not having seen the 30 scale or 100 scale drawings, a preferred route. That's what we're going to be talking about in the next week or 10 days.
Can the authority tell us what studies and plans have been completed to date and what they are?
We have the preliminary engineering plans, which again I refer to with respect to the Indian artifacts, which are very broad and don't tell you too much. We also have the aerial surveys done. The engineers are working on finer scale plans down to 30 scale, which the map for the area in East Brunswick will probably be as big as that wall. So it's very clear and precise. Those are, as I said, are not yet completed, but we expect to have them within the next week or 2. I think within the next week or 10 days for this area. There's some delay up north. Environmental impact statements are under study but are not completed. We have, I don't think in this area, but we have up north some severe toxic problems. Bayonne Drum and Barrel being a very interesting case, which is a place that was in the business for years and years of cleaning barrels. And then sometimes the barrels came in half full of toxic chemicals, and we don't know what's in the ground up there, and so we have to go in and do test borings. So the environmental stuff is underway but not yet completed. The traffic surveys are completed, and I might also suggest a lot of the stuff, the traffic surveys, the engineering reports, the preliminary stuff that's completed is contained in the official statement which we issued relative to the bond issue. And if anyone would like to have a copy of that, please contact me at the Turnpike either directly or through Mr. Cohen's committee.
And one last final question that I have. Has the Turnpike conducted any study on what effects pollution has in a narrow, concentrated area on plant life and on persons living along this corridor?
We monitor that type of problem all the time, and not only on our neighbors, but also on our toll collectors and employees. As it relates to this widening project, we have an environmental impact study in the field. That's certainly one of the things that's very important that they check. It's air quality, effects on the ecology in general, the environment, plant life, and vegetation. So that when that environmental impact study and studies are completed, that again will all be public information. And I will hope that most of that information will be available at the public access meetings, which I referred to earlier.
I think that's all the questions we have, Chairman Sullivan. If you'd like to wrap up and make some final comments of your own before Mr. Osowski, there is no public portion yet. Thank you.
Just a minute, Mr.
Mr.
Osowski. Before you
Osowski.
Continue, I've written down a question
Not all
to Mr.
questions.
Sullivan, and
Not all-
mine wasn't read off. I
Mr.
like mine
Osowski,
read
not
off.
all questions were answered due to the time
Why?
limitations and the fact that many of them are no doubt redundant. Same questions from different people.
Mr. President, if the audience would wish, I'd be happy to take with me any questions that were not answered and respond, Mr. Orkowski, through Mr. Cohen's committee.
Fine.
And that way, hopefully, I'll be able to satisfy everybody.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan. We'll take you up on that. It's an excellent suggestion. I was going to say, if you wish, you can make some final comments. We are going to have, as council and mayor, some final comments. But if you'd like to do that.
Well, I would just, first of all, like to thank you all for your participation and the very polite hearing you've given me and even applause. And I think, too, that the council should be proud of its citizens, and the citizens should be proud of its council, in that you have good town spirit. You're interested, that's important. I go to a lot of communities around the state where the people aren't interested. That's a shame, and I say keep up the good work. I do pledge to you my promise and pledge that we will cooperate in every way possible, cooperate with Mr. Cohen's committee, with the mayor, and the council, the planning board, and we'll do our best to be a good neighbor. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan.
I stood up and everybody else stood up to leave. I just wanted to say, Commissioner, that I'm encouraged by both your presence here tonight and what you've had to say. And I admire you for coming, and I've met you tonight, and I think you're a fine person, based on, this impression. But I have to tell you that based on all of my involvement in this township and with the Turnpike, and based on what everybody else I've talked to practically has told me, I have at least a mild degree of skepticism. As I go around the community and talk to people, they tell me two things. The first thing is that the Turnpike does what it wants, period. And there's nothing anybody can do. And that's a terrible thing for any public agency, a terrible reputation for any public agency to have. And I hope that that has changed. The second thing they say is, well, they'll tell you anything they think you want to hear, so then you won't do anything about it, and the next thing you know, they've stuck it to you. And that's a terrible reputation for a public agency to have, and I hope that's not true. I can tell you that if they are true, that everybody in the government in East Brunswick that I know of, at least the majority of us, I won't speak for the council, is committed to fight you every step of the way. We'll fight you in the courts. We'll fight you in the public hearings. We'll pour into the streets if we have to let the world know that you're not going to run over us. And I hope for your own personal credibility and for the sake of the people of our community that everything you said tonight comes to pass. And if it does, I'll thank you in advance for spending the time with us.
I have to make my last comment tonight. I had a question earlier, but I'll save my comment until now. Anyone who read the home news last Tuesday read that the expenditure of $100,000 had the unanimous support of the Township Council. And I called the Home News the next day because I was incensed. I did not agree to spend any monies, $100,000 or $1,000, towards the defense or fighting Mr. Sullivan in the New Jersey Turnpike. And I expected that there would be an article in the paper Wednesday or Thursday giving my version and why I was opposed to an expenditure of $100,000 or any monies towards the defense or fighting the New Jersey Turnpike. It's not always easy to take the side that I take. I've had conservative leanings forever, and I'm going to continue to have them. And I think that you can get a lot more done by spreading a little molasses out there instead of vinegar. And my position is that I will be opposed to it, and I'm still incensed about the Home News reporting it, that it had the unanimous support of this council. Thank you.
Your project is something that affects not just a handful of residents, as we indicated. Sure. Your project is not something that just affects a handful of residents, as you indicated earlier. It affects hundreds of homeowners, their families, their children, and the future that they have here in town. You've said you're going to work with us. I hope you do. Don't force us into a fight. We can and we will fight. We fought resource recovery and won. We can fight you and win. What I think is one of the worst things that residents are facing is not knowing whether the property is taken, it's not taken, how close it's going to be. Please get those reports, the maps, the drawings, the information out as soon as possible. That, I think, is one of the biggest concerns of all the people here. Thank you.
I wanted to say one last thing, although I said before I wasn't going to say one last thing. I don't want you to get the impression from the nature of the conversation and even some of the questions that we agree that the Turnpike should be widened at all. And before Mr. Cohen committee looks at what you're proposing to do, we're going to have some long conversations with you about whether you should be doing anything at all. And I believe that a majority of the council supports the committee in that, and that we will be very strong in our demand to be fully convinced that you have to do anything at all beyond Exit 9. And that's Mr. Cohen's committee's first charge, is to examine that. And we begin not believing it's necessary, and you're going to have to convince an awful lot of people that it is. And I just want to make that clear, because it seemed like we were getting to the point of saying, let's just talk about the way it should be when you do widen. We have one step to get over yet. We have to believe that it should be widened at all first. Mr. President?
Chairman Sullivan, the first thing I want to do is thank you on behalf of the community, the mayor, the council for coming out here. I think Mayor Fox alluded to the fact that I think it took some doing to come out here, and we appreciate you doing that. But the...
And listening to all this bullshit that's going on. You're really fighting like me. That's what you're doing.
We can have you escorted out if you'd like. We will have you escorted out.
I'll walk out. You don't have to escort.
Thank you.
Good. We're just listening right now. Don't get excited. We'll fight when we're ready.
I'm going to say again, Chairman Sullivan, that I thank you on behalf of the community and the mayor and the council for coming out this evening. Sir, we'll have you escorted out. That one of the comments I made earlier, Chairman Sullivan, about when I mentioned about the widening needing to take place north of Exit 11, I meant, and what I also meant by that is that it was very, very free as far as traffic was concerned between exits 11 down to 9 and further south. That is the approach that I feel the Turnpike ought to take, and place the emphasis on work north of exit 11. The comment that some of the people have made about the ad hoc committee's expenditure of funds is something that I support as well. However, I think if you got each council member alone and talked about how those funds should be spent, each would have a different idea. I think what we're all saying, though, is that the funds up to $100,000 would be spent, however, very judiciously and very wisely, and it will be well chosen and well spent to do the right thing for what we believe. I also want to remind the folks before we break up this evening, Mr. Cohn reminds me that the ad hoc committee meets on the second and fourth Thursday of every month, that the next meeting is 1 week from this Thursday at the library. And Mr. Sullivan, correct me if I'm wrong, there's going to be informational meetings on February 24th, 25th, and 26th here at the library. On the 24th and 25th, it will be between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m., a break for supper for the persons or people that will be here, and they'll be back from 7 to 10 p.m. On the 26th, it will be from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Well, again, thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan. We look forward to some more communication between you, the Township, and the Turnpike. And I want to thank everybody this evening here for conducting themselves very, very nicely. Thank you. We'll break for 10 minutes before we continue.